I went ahead and set up a little system for myself. So I'm going to use the box to brace myself to give me the exact height of resin I need for this cup. When you're using large quantities of resin, you obviously have to use a larger cup, and they come with cups that have the measurements on the sides, but they're pretty pricey. So typically I just make them for myself. So what I'm going to do is use the box, make sure that the pen is in the same spot. Then I'm going to go ahead and switch this with the second cup. That way I have the line in the same spot for both of these cups, and I have my same proportions for both of these. I can also kind of just come down at eye level, put these side by side, just make sure that they are in fact at the same heights, because obviously you do have to have exact proportions of each. Obviously, when you're working with this much resin, it can get a little bit costly. So this is more or less kind of like for your personal uses. If you wanted to do this on a smaller scale with like maybe coasters for your students, you could do that. But 2-part pours are a little bit challenging to do in a class environment. So I typically just do these kinds of projects for myself or my own home decor, which is a lot of fun because then you can customize and personalize it as much as you want. So I've got that first line, that's A, that was B, and I'm gonna go ahead and pour my A. Now we know in specific that whenever we're working with the amazing cast resin, it's a full-on chemical reaction. That's why this cures in 10 minutes, because it's having a chemical reaction. So when you mix these, they're going to get pretty hot. So just kind of be prepared for that, okay? And then the other thing that I've done is I've gotten myself a spoon. You can use a longer popsicle stick if you want to. I know that I have to work fairly quickly because this resin does cure pretty quickly. But we're also going to change the color of our resin from white to black. And I'm using the Alumilite Black. This brand, Alumilite, pairs beautifully with amazing cast resins. And they do come in multiple colors. They're typically your primary. So you have red, blue, yellow, not very exciting, but as long as you learn how to mix your colors, you can come up with a beautiful variety of colors, okay? So, having said that, I'm gonna go ahead and stir these together. I'm just going to scooch this aside. I'm also going to make sure that I get my black in there, and then I have to stir fairly quickly. It's kind of a no messing around type of situation when you're stirring it, or when you're working with the Alumilite 10-minute cure. And I'm going to go ahead and scooch this forward and over a little so it stays in camera frame. Do not exceed your mold. And I accidentally made too much, so I'm going to hope that doesn't cure on me. It's always a really good idea to have another mold ready to go so that if you do have excess, that you can pour it in. Okay, so I'm gonna shift this over so you can see. It's a charcuterie board mold. So it's a big silicone charcuterie board. It'll be easier for me to show you once I pop it out, but I kind of just poured it and used up the rest of it as quickly as I could so that I didn't waste any of my resin. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and let that cure, and I will be back. So the charcuterie portion is a really, really thin layer. We can go ahead and apply transfer to this, which is what I'm gonna do. And I'm going to use the black cap chickadee, but I'm also going to make sure that I put the pine down first. I'm kind of crazy about the high contrast of black and the image transfers by IOD. They're just so wonderfully opaque that you have just fantastic coverage. Now, because resin is a little bit stickier, you may not catch the air bubbles that you're kind of used to when you transfer down, but resin is a little bit tacky when you first pull it up, so it's kind of like the perfect cling for your image transfers. And of course, you can kind of come in and do your burnishing as you need to. Normally, our holiday decor at Christmas is very, very cream, gold, even pastels, a lot of Victorian pieces that I've kind of incorporated over the years. But every now and then I get a wild hair and I decide to completely change up the style and decor. This year, we're going with a very kind of lodge feel. So you've got a lot of really dark Christmas and winter designs. And the beauty of it is because so much of it is actually like completely neutral, you can get away with having so much of it for longer into your winter decor. It doesn't have to come down at Christmas time because it's not super, super Christmassy, you know? All right, so let's just go ahead and do our little chickadee guy. I want him to be resting on the twig perfectly. And like, there's a part of me that was like, am I gonna lose his head? What's gonna happen there? Is that gonna be okay? It turns out great, because in all actuality, that's more of a gray, kind of a matte gray finish. And then I have this one pine cone that I'm just gonna finish off up here. And now I'm ready to pour a clear coat of resin. So that is absolutely adorable and ready to go. So similar with the charcuterie board, we're gonna go ahead and lay down some of our pine into the trays themselves, but this time I will have a few of the gold snowflakes to also introduce in, which will be lovely. Tell me that's not cool. Love, love, love the high contrast. All right, so I'm kind of reluctant to go too crazy because when you do, you don't get a chance to like use all of the beautiful snowflakes. So I think that's gonna be fabulous. I can even maybe throw in a tiny one here, and that's good. Maybe let's shift over to this guy. And I like to make sure that like I let these sit in front of a window with lots of ventilation, because I don't know about you guys, but this resin smell is super strong and it does irritate my throat after a while. So it's really good to make sure that you are in a well-ventilated area. They are chemicals, you know, you have to be careful. So I can do maybe, I don't even know if I'm gonna do that because it's so pretty. I'm not even sure that I have to go with that big guy. I could save it for something else. So I'm liking that small one there. We also have to keep in mind too that like you need some flat surface for your goodies to sort of sit on here. So if it's too big, you end up having less surface area to kind of work with. And that's interesting. Our medium one could probably take 3. So let's do a medium and too small. It's kind of a little flurry of snowflakes there. Is that too busy? Okay, so for this next segment, we're gonna use the Amazing Cast Clear Coating Resin. This is not fast curing. This does take 6 to 8 hours. Technically, it can take longer if you live in a colder climate. So I'm gonna go ahead and utilize that cool little trick I taught you earlier, which was resting your pen on your box so that you get the perfect line in your clear Dixie cups. You can buy the clear resin in larger quantities, and it's a lot cheaper to buy the larger quantities, especially if you're doing large scale projects like this. So I would almost suggest kind of going with the gallon sizes when you're doing projects like this, because then you really get to stretch your money. It may feel like, oh my gosh, I just spent $79 on resin, which is a little on the pricey side. But when you take into consideration that you'll be able to crank out probably 10 of these, it's not so painful. And like, you could really retail nicely on these in terms of like selling them. But again, if you're doing this as a hobby and this is for yourself, hey, you don't even have to worry about that so much. Okay, so I'm gonna take, this is the thicker of the two. So when you're working with A in the clear cast, the A is really thick, B is really thin. So I'm just gonna go ahead and stir in my B, but I'm gonna scrape the sides to make sure I get as much of this out so I don't change the proportions on myself. And if you happen to have one of the silicone spatulas, that's your resin craft spatula, it's even better because then you're really making sure you get it all out. So that's really good. You know the drill. Do not stir as much as you fold. So I'm going to go ahead and just speed this up. That way you're not watching me stir forever. And we'll go ahead and pour after that. Okay, so our resin is all mixed. I'm gonna start off with a fair amount in the large tray first. Shift over to the medium-sized tray. You don't want to overfill these accidentally. And then with the remaining amount, I'm just gonna shift this over into my chickadee charcuterie board. And I apologize, I know I'm a little off camera, so bear with me here. These are some large scale projects. It's a little harder to get it all on camera. All right, so I'm gonna take my little spatula tool, kind of make sure I bring it edge to edge. I really don't want to touch this tray. It's a very flexible, flimsy silicone mold. So I want to make sure that this stays flat. Otherwise you're going to pour your resin out and you're just going to be completely freaking out and bummed that it's all going sideways. So just use your silicone tool or whatever you used to mix your resin. Could be your popsicle stick. Okay, and I think everything in this one already leveled out. The small guy. Same with this medium-sized one. I'm just going to shift over to my charcuterie board and get it edge to edge. Okay, you can wipe your silicone blade off with a baby wipe and or just sort of leave it in your cup and peel the resin off once it's cured. But we're gonna go ahead and leave these for 6 to 8 hours for curing time. And I'm gonna go ahead and take my gloves off so I can get you a little closer to the boards. So the charcuterie board has the full layer of clear resin on top. These have the lovely gold cast resin snowflakes. I've got lots of bubbles in here. A lot of them will degas on their own and kind of pop on their own. I wouldn't fuss with them. There are tricks and techniques. I don't think they're terribly safe for everybody, but you can use like a heat tool sometimes. It'll help bring everything to the surface and make them pop. But more times than not, I kind of just don't mind and I leave them be. All right, so we're gonna let that cure and I will come back and show you how I assemble my 3-tier tray as well as my pretty little charcuterie board. All right guys, see you in a bit. Pretty excited. These are good and hard and ready to go. So we're just gonna gently pry away the edges of our silicone mold here. And of course we have all of the really cool hardware to go with this. And assuming that you didn't overfill, you should have a really nice little hole in the center of all 3 of these so that we can go ahead and put them together. Each of the sets come with the washers and the screws and all the hardware, but you also get a silver as well as a gold. So like depending on your personal preference, you can have one of each or one or the other, whichever you prefer. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and start with this guy on the bottom. Make sure you put your little washer down there. It's gonna go on the underside. Then we'll go ahead and screw on the center base. And if you wanted to do the washer between here and the resin, you totally could. So like if you wanted to put that on here, you could, and then put this on top. I just really don't care for the white to show, so I'm kind of just skipping that. All right, next up, and there you have your 3-tier resin tray with all of your gorgeous snowflakes and image transfers showing up on this piece. And of course, we can't forget our charcuterie, which was kind of our throw-in here. Just gently peel that out and away. And you have this absolutely beautiful charcuterie board. Obviously you wouldn't want to like go cutting on this. I wouldn't even put meat or cheeses on this. This is more decorative, and a lot of us have like really pretty little charcuterie collections, so you can have this kind of leaning in the kitchen and it'll look super pretty. And if you wanted to, you could put like packaged. So that's what I do with these, is I put all of my desserts that are done in the cute little paper cups on all of these, so that the resin isn't necessarily coming into contact with any of the food, and so it's all really pretty and easy to clean up at the end of a holiday. All right, so I'll go ahead and take pictures of these, stage them all up for you guys to see them in their full glory. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed this project. It was really fun for me to show you guys all of the resin layers, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Bye.